Hi HR Nation, welcome back to another episode of the HR Leaders Podcast, the show where we explore the future of work with industry experts and HR executives on the world's leading global brands. Today we've got a special guest, a good friend of ours. We're joined by Robb Holman, who's a global speaker, best-selling author who inspires leaders to lead from the inside out. Today we're going to be talking about his new book, Move the Needle, How Inside Out Leaders Influence Organizational Culture. Welcome, how are you? Nice to see you again.
Chris, great to see you. As always, you and I always enjoy back-end conversation, live recording conversation, and post or debrief because so like minds, like hearts, and we both used to dance, but you still dance. So I don't know where that puts me.
I don't know about if I still dance, but I definitely have lost that a little bit more stiff than back in the day. Yeah, you are right though. Like for anyone listening right now, for whoever's listening right now, we have like a 20-minute chat before we even get into the podcast. Always seems to, I need to just focus on press and record immediately as soon as we jump on a call together because you bring up the energy immediately. And I needed that. I had a big lunch with the team. I had steak, chips, loads of dessert. And I was like, I got to do a podcast with you now, but I knew you were going to bring energy. So I'm like, it's fine. As long as it's Robb next, so we're good. But how you been anyway?
One of the number one questions I'm ever asked is, Robb, do you have more than how many cups of coffee do you drink a day?
A lot, but
and
no,
this is honest answer. I drink 1 cup of regular coffee a day. You do not want to see me on any more than that. It's water, herbal teas, etc. because I would be a danger to the world if I didn't harness this positive energy in some great way.
Yeah. Do you crash though? Like, cause I'm one of those people that if I have too many and I just crash and I'm done. I'm just like,
yeah. I get up early. I get up at like 5:30 a.m.
5:30 a.m. I can't even imagine getting up early.
Go. And then trust me, at about 9 p.m. at night, you can ask me anything. And I'm like, yeah, all right.
Oh, okay. What time do you go to bed though? Like if you're getting up that early, what time are you going to sleep?
Yeah, I try to get in bed by about 10 and get my 7.5 hours. Usually I fall asleep around, 10:30, 11 o'clock.
Is that good for you? Is 7.5 hours good for you? Is that like, you found
that? Yeah, I'd say seven is ideal. If I get 7 good hours of sleep, I'm golden.
Really? Wow.
Yeah.
Are you getting
How about you? How about you?
Oh man, I'm terrible when it comes to sleep. Like I really struggle to get to sleep. I'm working on it, but it's just I'm not a morning person. Like you're lucky if I'm awake at 9. Like I am but then I end up working into the evening because I get I need to replace that with the lack of distraction in the morning. Because a lot of people say I get up early, no one distracts me. I say I work late so no one distracts me.
I like that.
So it's the other way around because everyone's asleep and I'm just like focusing on anything that I just hadn't had the time to get to. But obviously then the lack of sleep then affects my day. So I need to start going. What I started doing recently is I've just got a personal trainer and I have to be up early now because my personal trainer starts at 7:30. So I have no choice. So that's kind of holding me accountable. To be there and awake early. So my body's slowly going, why are you doing this to me this early? Why am I lifting all of these weights and kettlebells and pull-ups? But it's good though.
No, it is good. And I think at the end of the day, whether you get up later or you get up earlier, go to bed at a certain time, you have to find out what works well for you and to maximize your most productive hours during the day. And I know you do that I'm
locked in, man. Like when I'm in. But then, so that's the problem. It's like we spoke about flow state before from sports, and it's similar within business. You get into that flow state and you're just in as well, which I love. And you don't even know you're in the flow state. So you're just in it.
Chris, I think that there's a myth out there with multitasking. So many times we think that we can multitask and do, 3 different things at the same time, but studies prove that's just not the case. I think some people are better at doing that than others, but at the end of the day, I love the book, One Thing by Gary Keller that he wrote a couple years back. The one thing principle, like what's the one thing you're going to hone in on any given day? And when you just are laser focused on that one thing to see it through, there's a depth of your activity. There is a laser focus that comes as a natural result. You're going to reap rewards from it and others in your sphere of influence too.
Yeah. Do you know what I realized recently? I just bought a Mac and so I've kind of gone from Windows to Mac, which is a whole other story of learning how to use a Mac. But I've got one screen at home now, whereas I used to have multiple. And I've realized with that one monitor, I'm getting like a lot more focused, because before I'd have this open over here and this video and this Excel and stuff like that. And now I only have one monitor. Although I'm limited to what I can do, what I actually am focusing on, I'm laser focused because there's no distractions. So I'm kind of contemplating, do I like just sticking with one now rather than getting loads of monitors and trying to do a million things at once.
I hear you. But hey, welcome to my world. But you are, I think, when you're in the area of technology and leveraging technology in the way that you do for the HR Leaders podcast and other things that you're involved in, like the summits you hold, et cetera, it must require you to be focused on different things. I know you're laser focused within that, but also you're considering many different things at the same time, which, kudos to you. I applaud you for doing that, because very few people can do that and do it well. Yeah,
and you're right. I do it to a certain, like I'm sitting there replying to an email whilst looking at LinkedIn, whilst even having some a tab open, editing some video footage. And I'm switching in between, but you're right. Like it is and I can watch a movie at the same time and tell you exactly what happened in that movie. Goodness. So yeah, I know. Like, because a lot of time I'm surfing LinkedIn, replying to emails and watching a movie, but I can still be engrossed in the movie and do that, which I realize probably isn't quite a normal thing. I know some people that do that. Actually, a few of my employees are very good at doing that. And I was like, how can you do that? Like, I'm like, well, I know exactly what's happening there and I can enjoy it.
Yeah. Chris, are you trying to say that you're not normal? You are in very good company, my friend.
Yeah, I know. Well, listen, tell everyone more about you. First and foremost, congratulations on the new book. Tell everyone a bit more about that. I'm so excited for you.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. It's a third book in the last handful of years. And I believe it could not be more timely in the COVID season and time that we all find ourselves in. I think so many people, Chris, are like, we're beginning to come out of COVID. I don't know if we ever will, in the sense of it's changed us forever. And I think it has awakened us to some things. It's provided opportunity. It's not without challenge, but I think if we can really hone in and look at the challenges, a tremendous opportunity for personal growth and the growth within our sphere of influence, then I think our perspective on the matter is a really good one. And so the book itself, Move the Needle, How Inside Out Leaders Influence Organizational Culture. It's all about, the temptation for business leaders, HR leaders, executives, et cetera, is go, 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 move, move, move. It's about the next thing, the next goal, accomplishment, accomplishment, accomplishment. I'm saying in the book, slow down. In other words, let's allow slow to be the new fast. And in doing that, let's learn how to put people over procedures for greater results. Because we know this, that in that movement, in that fast-paced lifestyle, leadership, et cetera, when it is about goals, accomplishments, processes, systems, procedures, they can take the place of the people that facilitate those things. And so for me, it's like, time out. That's why I think it couldn't be more timely with the COVID time we live in, is how do we actually learn to slow down as human beings, as leaders, and begin to put people before the procedures to maximize results? And that's really, the book lays that out of how to best do that.
Love that. Before we jump into more specifics, how do you define outside leaders? Inside out leaders. Apologies.
Yeah. Well, I think you're heading in the right direction. I like to actually start from the outside of how, what I believe based on my experience and a lot of statistical research to back this up as well. A lot of leaders, a lot of people are looking to be motivated. In other words, they're in need of exterior things that will help motivate them to do certain things, to accomplish certain things. I'll give you a real life example. Okay. This is more of a personal example. So, okay, why should we drive the speed limit? Well, a lot of people drive the speed limit so that they don't get pulled over, get a ticket and points on their license, which will add to the overall cost of what you have going on. Who wants that? No way. So there's a motivational thing, kind of negative in the sense that actually keeps people, motivates people to stay within the speed limit. Okay, that's an exterior motivational tactic or ploy to try to keep us within bounds. All right. And the same thing happens in the workplace within departments and teams. I mean, that's what many people have referred to as almost the employee experience. I'm not against that. I think there's a place for exterior things, right? A lot of the human experience has to do with increased incentives, more autonomy, more vacation time. All these things matter. They're important. But I still believe they are exterior things trying to get into the heart and the mind of the worker. And does it have some positive effect? Of course. But what I have found in so many others all over the globe, it's short-lived. Chris, there's just not the vibrancy and long-term sustainability within ourselves, our team members, our departments, and our organizations. So in steps in this place, what I call inside-out leadership, that what would it look like for us to start into the heart of the mind of the worker, into the mind? In other words, what inspires someone, purpose and passion. And if we can begin getting to know ourselves and our team members, one team member at a time, deeply, okay? Deeply, like what impassions you in your personal life? What makes you come alive? See, now we're doing things on the personal and the professional basis, not because we should, we ought, or you know what, better get a line here because this is what I get paid to do. We're actually beginning to do things because we're compelled to do so out of a very deep and inspirational place. That's what I call inside working itself out.
Mm-hmm. No, I love that. I'm glad I asked that question. It's interesting. You are right. Over the last, I don't even know when this COVID first started. I've lost track of time at this point. Pretty much nearly 2 years that we've been in
I've
this.
Lost track too.
I've stopped trying to keep count. People are demanding more now, right? As well, we're seeing this sort of great resignation or the great awakening, as I like to say. People want more from the organization, and it's funny how, like, all of a sudden, this sort of the 9 to 5, I suppose, is an example of that. That was one of those limitations, right? Or those. It was like the speeding equivalent within the workplace that you have to work and be confined by that, or where work is done, right? Work used to be a place you go to. And now that's no longer the case either, as well. And people have woke up and said, you know what, I don't want to do it this way. And I want to work for a company that's aligned with my why, my purpose, my values. And they're realizing there's actually other opportunities out there as well.
Yeah. Oh, I couldn't agree more. I think that the Great Resignation is a phenomenal opportunity. And I love what you call it, the Great Awakening. I've heard the Great Reevaluation. There's just different terms for it. But here's what it's done. And Chris, I want to highlight something, and I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit. You're probably familiar, as most people, with what has been called over the years as the golden rule, right? What do you remember what the golden rule is or what it says?
No, actually, no. I'm like nodding, okay. But I'm like, no.
Yeah. So the golden rule, no, I appreciate your honesty. Not everyone does. So the golden rule is basically treat others or do to others what you would want done yourself.
Okay. All right.
It's a golden rule.
Rule. Okay. Yeah.
So in the midst of that, I'm like, I think that's more old school. I think that's more prior to COVID, how many people, HR leaders, executives, just leaders in general within business and just within life, we tend to operate more from that principle. And it reaped pretty great rewards. I just think now with the Great Resignation, with this tremendous opportunity, it's a time to change the rule book. What would it look going from the golden rule into more of a platinum rule? And here's what I mean by that. Instead of doing to others what you would want done yourself, how about doing to others what they want done unto them?
Yeah.
That would inspire or to encourage them. See that little shift of thinking? And that's what COVID has done. It has shaken us to consider and seriously consider certain things about what does it actually mean, this thing called human to human connection. That, yeah, we have jobs to do. We have responsibilities at hand. We got projects to consider, no doubt. But what does it really mean to connect to just one team member at a time? And in a sense, go vertical in that relationship, make it more personal and less professional. It doesn't mean we're not going to talk about professional things. It just means that you value that team member more as a person and a human being, and your willingness is there to serve them and to serve them really, really well. And as you serve and spend time with them, you actually are beginning to consider how they would like to be treated, how they actually would like to be served. Now, I love this because some of the work done with like Gary Chapman back in the 1990s, big pioneer, he wrote a book called The 5 Love Languages. I don't know if you've ever heard it.
I have heard of it, yeah.
Perhaps some of our listeners have as well. But the 5 love languages, now he puts it in context of marriage, but it's a powerful principle. And he identifies, words of affirmation, gifts, service, physical touch within marriage, things like this, but not what you think your spouse or your partner wants done, but actually consider what they really want done. And then once you find out what makes them tick and what makes them come alive, you serve them really well in that way. Well, Chapman teamed up with another person, co-wrote a book, I think back in 2017, maybe 2018, somewhere around there. And it's called like the words, I think it's like, what is it? The words of affirmation in the workplace or something like that. So he basically takes this marriage or partnership principle and uses language that we all need to hear and implement in the workplace. And it goes along with the platinum principle or the platinum rule. So I'm a firm believer, Chris, if we can allow this time to help us just change the rule book from the golden rule into the platinum rule, it's going to set us up for major success.
Yeah. Because forever we've always assumed that we know what's best or what we like, other people must love the same thing. And most leaders make their decision base is from that. And it's funny how you see so many surveys about employee satisfaction. You speak to the leaders and they would rate themselves, 80%. And you ask the exact same question to people at the bottom of the business or the front line, should I say, and they're like completely disconnected with reality. They're like, really? I was like, well, because that's what means is valuable to you, it doesn't mean that's going to be the same. And then we've designed systems, processes, tools, all based from that point of view. So no wonder that one of the big focuses for everyone right now is employee experience. It's kind of the buzzword right now. And what does it even mean? Because I think it's very, employee experience. I ask many leaders, what does that mean to you? I get a different answer every time. What is the employee experience? And something interesting you said, tell me, for example, why creating employee experience is not enough, because you mentioned that before.
Yeah, I think there's a place for it, but it doesn't go deep enough. This human to human experience, I believe that the new employee experience is a human experience. And if we're going to look under the hood of the car, so to speak, within human experience, people want connection. People want genuine, authentic connection. Like, Chris, I'll ask you, whether it's your wife, your child, a really close friend, a business colleague, when they are focused on you, no one or nothing else but you, and you know it. As I say, you know it in your knower because they're locked in. And perhaps they ask you a question or two and they dig a little deeper and they genuinely care. Like, how do you feel in the moment like that?
Just feel valued, right? You feel front and center. You feel needed. So listen to, just feel good, right? It makes you feel, Yeah, you're spot on. You feel valued, appreciated, respected, honored. Mm-hmm. Some people see, I feel loved. Yeah, loved place. Actually. Yeah, loved. Yeah.
And so in the midst of that, I think we need to learn as HR leaders and executives, just influencers in our own right, how to be more present with people, how to minimize the amount of distractions around us. Easier said than done. I got it. But at the end of the day, if our workers, if our team members, if our employees feel valued because they know in that moment and in that time that they are the only person that you are listening to, that you're truly trying to understand, my goodness, they're going to climb the mountain for you. They're going to do whatever it takes to get that job done. Why? Because they're not doing it because they should or they ought. They're doing it because they're compelled, because they feel loved, valued, appreciated, and honored. Mm-hmm. That's a whole different place. So I believe that is the employee experience. It's not as much about the things that we put into place to try to motivate people, but genuine connection that inspires people.
Yeah. What's some practical things then we can do then to make sure this happens? Where do we start?
Yeah, I think one place to start is, it's simplify our life. I think so many times we think activity, move. Let's make things happen. But activity doesn't always equate to the best activity. So if we truly are going to put people first before things and procedures and systems, et cetera, does our calendar reflect that? Like, can we shed of things that we probably shouldn't be doing nearly as much? And a lot of this is based on our priorities. And I will make a strong argument that people should be our number one priority. Just look within our sphere of influence. Now, I'm even talking holistically now. Our temptation is to go right to the workplace within our team members. And don't worry, we're going to get there. But even in your own personal life, who's your immediate sphere of influence, your core team, so to speak? And are we putting those individuals as a main priority in our life? Okay. Yeah. Now you move over to the workplace. Are we doing the same thing? And in a sense, are we guarding and protecting those individuals as though they are the largest client of ours on the planet? Now, if we start to truly prioritize them, we start to shed perhaps of other things and stuff that we may not be doing nearly as much. And what that's actually doing, Chris, at the end of the day, it's creating space for people. Because sometimes we're trying to plug people in on the drop of a dime. Like, I think I can meet with you right in the midst of all this stuff we're doing. But if we truly prioritize people, then we're going to create space for them. And when we create space for them in our calendar, and this, I'm a big proponent of the one-to-one meetings in this process. Now, all of a sudden, the one-to-one meetings with our core team members are up front and center. Now, that's just one part of the equation. The second part is this. Once we actually clear our schedule and begin putting our team members in as they're a prized possession, how do we truly want to maximize that time we're spending with each team member?
Yeah.
You know, I think so many times we'll rush into the problem that needs to get fixed, come up with a solution.
I'm guilty of that as well.
And I am too at times. But what would it look like to truly maximize that time? Again, human to human connection. The employee experience is a human experience. And are we committed to spend more time getting to know them personally, serving them personally, honoring them personally? Don't worry, we're going to get to the business. We're going to get to the professional stuff. But I'm assuring everyone that when we spend the needed time to validate them, not based on what they do, but who they are, when we get to the business stuff, and we will, or the team stuff, that's when we truly start to maximize that time. Mm-hmm. And the greatest solutions come out of that place. Yeah.
What kind of questions are you asking? Do you have like your go-to, just some go-to questions you could share?
Yeah, absolutely. If it's a new team member, or even perhaps someone I'm recruiting, maybe they're not onboarded yet and they're in the interview process. I think making a great first impression is everything, right? It builds and fosters trust in such a short period of time. So if I'm getting to know someone or at the early stages, I love to ask this question. What things, both good and challenging, have happened in your life throughout the years, leading you up to the present day, that have helped shape you to become the person you are today in this moment?
That's a question.
Yeah. Because
you got to take a few moments to think about that one. If
you do, because think about what we're really talking about there are life milestones.
Yeah, about to say
significant moments in time, whether you've lived 30 years or 70 years, that truly in that moment, you may not have fully realized it, but you knew you would never really ever be the same again. So in other words, it could be the birth of your first child.
Yeah, that's the first thing that came to my mind. That literally was the very first. And also the other thing was just sort of the struggle of growing up in a single parent, 4 kids. It was tough, but that also shaped the resilience, et cetera, et cetera. So
there you go.
Yeah.
So you're letting me and you're letting the listeners into your life. Imagine if we do that with a team member that we don't know that well. Mm-hmm. And even as time moves forward and we feel like we've gotten to know them fairly well, always remain committed to get to know something about a team member personally that we've never known before. And that this requires some things from us as leaders. It requires some patience. It requires more of active listening and less speaking. It requires some level or depth of sacrifice. I believe that if I go and actually care for this person and truly get to know them, I got to push some of this stuff aside, at least for the time being. And I'm not so certain it'll all get done. So now there's a trust factor with the stuff and the person that you're actually getting to know and serving. And now that means sacrifice. Are we willing to sacrifice the stuff for a depth of relationship with our people so that ultimately we believe the stuff will get done, but get done in a whole new way and even greater than we could ever think or imagine?
On that point then, why is it then, do you think that organizations in many ways still prioritize the stuff or the procedures over people?
Yeah, I think because business is about numbers. It's about finance. It's about reaching the financial goals so you can continue to grow and grow financially, grow your organization with influence, grow your team members, grow your business. So for me, I would rather have a mentality and a mindset that will reach the masses and those numbers I just discussed if we're committed to reaching the one. So think about that, Chris, that I'm banking on having a genuine care and concern for the one person in front of me. That in that, I'm actually planting a seed that I believe will give birth to an amazing garden of colors and fragrance and everything down the road that would never be there otherwise. Mm-hmm. See, we oftentimes will go with what we think has always worked, but I'll say this, I think that the Great Resignation has reminded all of us, has it really worked?
Yeah, I know. And you mentioned obviously that seed, and that those are the people then that will be speaking to the customers and the investors, etc., and it spreads that way. But also on the other side, from a negative perspective, it also spreads just as fast, if not faster, as well. What are some sort of the core principles that you share in the book?
Yeah. Well, one other, I already talked about, just simplifying your life, your leadership.
Yeah,
just,
I love that one.
Shedding of things. So that's one.
Because we want to add stuff a lot of times, but you're right. It's firstly to look at what do we get rid of.
That's right.
Before we start.
Which it's not easy to get rid of stuff. If I'm really honest, Chris, I kid you not. I'm being a little funny with this, but this is true too. I still have like jackets in my basement, like a Boston Celtics jacket from
my wife's always like, get rid of those. You don't need them anymore. But we've all got wives like that.
Like, what do you need that for? But here's what we do as human beings and as leaders. We hold on to physical things. We hold on to emotional things that deep down inside we know we should get rid of. But we hold on to it because we're like, well, you never know if I'm going to use this at some point. Right? So that can be emotional. You never know if I'm going to need to really hold on to this because I might need to revisit it. Or you never know if I hold on to that jacket that hasn't fit me for 25 years.
Yeah.
If I'm ever going to wear it again, but I know I'm not. And it requires us, to take a deeper look at what we really need and why we need it. So I encourage people to take a really close look at what are their priorities in their life right now. What are their priorities? Think holistically in your life. Think family, spiritual, of course, professional, leadership, emotional, physical. We can go down the, but what would you say are your main priorities in your life? And then second thing I would say is, what do you feel that you're still holding on to that's causing you not to go as deep in those areas of your life with your core sphere of influence? And would you be willing? Sometimes, Chris, we underestimate the power of the human will. I will do this or I will not do this. Mm-hmm. And then I love everyone to take a closer look to say, am I willing to shed or get rid of this for the betterment of going deeper with those that matter most in my life?
And sometimes, this is it, maybe you tell me if this is an extreme, that also means getting rid of certain relationships with people.
True.
And I've had to do that, and it's been tough, even with family. Members that have been sort of toxic or negative, that I'm like, I need to let go of that. Not let go completely, but just distance.
Totally. Well, what jumps to mind for me is it's boundaries. Boundaries are important in this process.
Yeah.
And typically leaders, the more that they grow and develop in their leadership, in their influence, people are only going to want more of their time, not less. So it's their management of themselves that means everything.
Yeah.
And I've found, Chris, that people with the demand that so many leaders, so many of your listeners, the demand that they have on their time, attention, resources, everything, it's increased. It's a high demand. The people typically come tugging on leaders, and they fall in three different buckets of why they're tugging on them. One, they're asking for a favor. Second, it's an obligation. Like you feel obligated to help this person or do this for this person. But the third is a genuine sense that it's an opportunity. And the only way, and so many leaders, because our heart are to help people, to serve people. That's why we're in leadership. That's why we're in these roles that we take on. But sometimes we say yes, not sometimes, many times we say yes way too often because our heart's to help. But at what sacrifice? Only to find out that deep on the inside, we're saying yes way too often, not having the boundaries in place that we know we need to have. In essence, we're being stretched way too thin. We're running on fumes on the verge of being burned out, if not already there. And now it's affecting everyone and everything that we're doing.
Yeah.
So for me, I think a huge part of shedding, it's our priorities, but also understanding that our priorities are going to help put in place the proper boundaries. And the more that we get to say yes to the people and the things that matter most, right? Now we can let our no be no and our yes be yes, and it creates greater depth of relationship at the end of the day.
Yeah. No, I've made that mistake saying yes far too often. And now I kind of, rather than reacting with emotion or just, I ask myself, like, is what I'm doing here in right now getting me closer to my goal, or the why, the purpose? Is it in line with my why and the purpose? And if the answer is no, then I just have to say no. And sometimes it's hard, but you just can't please everyone, because then you just don't do anything. You can't. It affects everything, and you do a mediocre job at all of the things because you're just stretched so far, and then you miss things, and then you let people down. Like I literally only last week I had to message someone who I said that I would help and say, "I'm so sorry I didn't help you because I just completely forgot." But I genuinely wanted to help them. Yeah. But I just lost track of time, and there's a million things going on, and I was like, so I'd rather say no than actually let you down, and not be able to do it. The last thing I want to do is commit and then not be able to do it.
Sure.
Yeah.
But Chris, when we enter into that space real quick, when someone asks us to do something and you have a genuine heart to help, it is a lot easier in the moment to say, "Oh, sure, I'll do it. I'll do it."
Yeah, I know. And then you're like, "Oh."
Yeah, but deep down inside, you're like, what did I just do that for? Because I think the average leader, the average person just really wants to please people because, again, we have a heart to help. Mm-hmm. But what I have found is when you can stand your ground based on your priorities, ultimately based on get back to the people and the things that matter most, hinges on our priorities. And you now discipline yourself and make a willful choice in that moment when someone comes tugging on you. Hey, Chris, would you do this with me? Now you stand your ground firm to say, you know what? I so appreciate you asking me. My heart says yes. However, because my family or because this team member really needs me right now, I'm going to have to say no. And then what we're doing is in that moment, we're honoring and respecting ourselves because we're holding true to what we believe is right. We ultimately are bringing more honor and respect to that other individual because we're setting them up for success, although we're saying no in the moment, but we're not like saying, yeah, and then not following through.
Yeah.
And I also believe, thirdly, that we are literally, when we're doing that, we are speaking out to everyone in a very interesting way to say, yeah, I matter. I want to be a really good steward of who I am and what I've been entrusted with, so I can ultimately bring good to the universe.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love that. We could all do better at that. How do you think we can best serve everyone, team members, personally, professionally? I would say post-COVID, but it never feels like there's going to be an end. At this point, I was just going to say, I feel like we're living with this as opposed to, I don't think there's going to be post anything, but you get my question, right?
I do. Yeah. I think, and I'll probably come full circle when I'm going to say this, but learning how to be more present with the one person that's before you. I'm going to use an example. Chris, about a year and a half ago, I only had one grandparent that was still living. And I visited her. She was in her last days. She actually died 10 days before her 102nd birthday.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
And I got a chance to visit her down the home stretch of her life. And I'm going to take you into that time, and I'll keep this tight. It was during COVID, so I had to wear a gown. I had the mask. I had everything. And I make it into her room. And my time that I spent with her was about, I'd say around 45 minutes, but there was only about 20 minutes where she wasn't sleeping or something like that. So I had 20 minutes, the last time I was going to see and spend time with my grandmother, 20 good minutes where she was alert. She was focused on me. I was focused on her. And there was one exchange I want to share with you, Chris, and the audience. There was one exchange I had with her where I looked into her eyes and I said, "You are so beautiful." Chris, I might even get a little emotional with this. As I looked into her eyes, I saw this soon to be 102-year-old grandmother of mine. The look on her face, the countenance that she had was like a 5-year-old little girl that was absolutely beaming with excitement and honor and love because she was hearing from her grandson the words, "You're beautiful." Now, what you might need to know is her memory wasn't that great towards the latter part of her life. I didn't know after those words came out of my mouth, I didn't know if she would ever remember those words again when I would leave. All I knew in that moment that I said those words, "You are beautiful," and the look on her face, the eye-to-eye contact, the depth of connection, presence, that's all that mattered. She died shortly after that visit, and I will never, ever forget that exchange I had with her. So if we really want to connect with people, especially in this COVID time that we all live in, that has forever changed us, let's be committed one person at a time, one team member at a time, to show and to demonstrate a sincere interest in them, not in what they do as much as in who they are. And that can look like being quick to ask questions to better get to know them personally, professionally, et cetera, but can also be acknowledging very specifically some things that you really admire about them, some things you really enjoy about them. And as a natural result, as we talked about earlier, Chris, that individual is going to feel so valued and so appreciated, so loved, not based on title, responsibility, or a bonus structure or an incentive or vacation time or this or that, those exterior things. Because at the end of the day, you took time to say that they matter. And could it be out of that place of presence that people are compelled to fulfill the task at hand? And I'm just a firm believer that that is the case. And when we learn to put people before procedures, the results speak for themselves.
Wow. I don't even know where to start on that story, but thank you for sharing it. I could see how emotional you were, but like that, you couldn't have put it any better. And that example really demonstrates that, right? It's interesting because you made me think, because my nan's just got into care recently as well, and I still haven't even managed to see her. So it's made me realize like I need to really make sure that I carve time out and go and see her. We're very personal right now, so I'm going to ask you this question. What is the legacy that you want to leave behind?
Yeah. The legacy that I want to leave is a commitment to invest my life, throughout my life, into 12 people. And if I can invest my life and reproduce aspects of who I am into their life, they'll carry that on to the next generation and the next generation. You know, I'm not looking to influence or impact thousands of people. I'm really not, Chris. But I've dedicated my life because at the end of the day, I'm a firm believer in that we reproduce who we are. So if people can experience me by one-to-one connection in a very, intimate way, highly engaging way, where we're really on journey, and I'm for you, you're for me, and we're committed to truly get to know each other. And that means the good, that means the bad, that means the ugly.
Yeah.
And that means certainly a goal at hand, perhaps we're trying to accomplish together. And if I've done that and really devoted my life to 12 people to really invest into, to pour into, to mentor really, really well with some of my personal core values, things like attitude of gratitude, living a purpose-driven life. Those are just two, for instance. Mm-hmm. Then all of a sudden, when I'm no longer here, I'll sleep really well for all eternity.
Yeah. Well, look, man, I can tell you already, you've impacted a lot more than 12 people. I'm one of them as well. And it means a lot. And I'm super excited to get this book in the hands of our audience as well. I know they're going to gain so much valuable insights from it, and both personally, professionally, as well, as we've kind of experienced through some of your own stories. Before I let you go, where can people connect with you if they want to reach out to you personally? And also, where can they grab a copy of the book?
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. I think a couple different places, and you need to know this, Chris, even before I talk and let people know where to go. I so appreciate you. I mean, you are such a tremendous gift for me. Every time I think of you, I come across, your work through your summits, through your podcasts, through just when I talk to different people and your name comes up. You are such a gift to this world. You create opportunities for people like me and so many others all around the planet to have a voice in the midst of just a larger conversation about people and about organizations, on what really matters. So for that, I just say thank you. And it's a joy to be on this journey of life with you and consider you a friend. So thanks for doing that. And just being who you are. Really.
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
I really do. Without people like you, there is no show. So that's why I said to everyone, I've got the easier job. I just want to kind of share all of the great work and people I come across. So I just really wanted to create a platform to help elevate that. So I appreciate your work.
I mean, whoever would have known that we had more in common than just our dance moves? You know what I mean? We actually have our hearts are aligned, our minds are aligned. This is amazing stuff. But I would say a couple different places people can go for just general information. I do a lot of speaking. Obviously, I've written now 3 books. So you can go to robbholman.com, and that's Robb with 2 B's. As it relates to the book specifically, you can go on Amazon, wherever online the books are sold. There's ebook version, paperback version available currently, but Amazon probably is the best place for that. But you can also find out more information at movetheneedlebook.com.
Okay, amazing. And for everyone listening, as always, those links are already below. So just to make your life easier, click on those. But listen, we need to meet up in person at some point. We've been chatting for so many years. Feels like I've known you for a long time, but we need to make that happen at some point in time. But until then, keep up the amazing work, man. And I look forward to seeing you in the future face to face.
Vice versa. Blessings. Thanks so much.